morning, Kristen. That's right. So Vice President Harris and former President Donald Trump are on the campaign trail, hitting key battleground states. With the election just over 3 weeks away, new fundamental questions are being raised. To dive deeper into this topic, I am joined now by Courtenay Dunn. She is a Senior Director of Government Affairs here at ICE. Good morning, Courtenay.
Good morning, Trinity. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. So how do you see the election results of 2024 really affect the balance of power in Congress, particularly in terms of who might take over key leadership positions?
Sure, thank you. So we're 3 weeks out, 22 days to be exact, but who's counting, from the election. And not only will the next president of the United States determine what priorities and policy issues they are top of mind for them, but there will be several impacts of the election on the rest of D.C. as well. Most notably, the control of the Senate could also be determined by this election. Right now it's Democratic controlled. There's a possibility that it could flip to Republican, it could stay Democratic, but you can easily see how there would be an interesting interplay in both Congress and the White House if there was a split and the White House became one party and the Senate became another. Add on to that the House. So the House has several very tight contested elections across the country, and the control of the House will also have a significant impact on the ability of Congress and the White House to achieve the objectives that they're interested in achieving. And lastly, I'd also like to mention that the impact of the election really stretches far across D.C. This will also impact the banking and regulatory agencies, because several heads of the agencies may find themselves in a different party than the new president, and therefore subject to being removed. Now, there's different rules and procedures for each agency head, but that's certainly something to watch as well, as there have been very significant regulatory agency priorities and rulemakings that are still floating around here at the end of the year.
And you know, following Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, new questions are also surfacing about which candidate is best equipped to lead the country through deadly natural disasters. From your vantage point, how has the focus of the 2024 election campaigns shifted, if any, especially in regions that are most affected by these storms?
Right. The hurricanes have undoubtedly had a significant impact, obviously, on both of these regions, but it's raised interesting questions, in particular, not only about the federal government, how it handles natural disasters, but I'd also like to note this brings out another political interplay between the federal and the state government. So for sure, there have been debates and questions, and will continue to be, about whether or not the Speaker of the House brings back its members to vote on any additional spend. It is expected that the White House will ask for additional funding for as a result of the hurricanes. But there's also questions being reviewed again in light of these disasters of how the states handle them. I mean, in North Carolina, they've actually had to address how their voters can vote in elections, particularly in the regions that were really heavily impacted by the hurricanes. So these are basics, access to your right to vote questions that are essential for so many Americans. There's also questions about insurance. This has been a particularly hot topic across the United States, but certainly in Florida, and much of insurance is actually regulated at the state level. So there's raised questions about how the federal and state governments are working together to try to help their citizens get back on their feet and rebuild. And lastly, I would just note that the National Flood Insurance Program is also scheduled to be reauthorized by the end of this year. So lots of questions, and certainly no lack of topics for Congress to debate in the next few weeks.
And there's a lot to look out for over the next few weeks, Courtenay. And it was great to have you joining us today. I'm sure we will be speaking to you more on the show.